I had the pleasure of speaking with Craig Harrison, former British Army soldier, author, and Maverick Survival School course leader, not being quite sure how his story fit with the other conversations I've had over the past 3.5 years. And he was a perfect fit. How he spoke about his life with PTSD, the importance of communicating and connecting with others, and the restorative power of time in nature was brave, gentle, open, and generous. Here's my conversation with Craig. I appreciate so much you making time, especially because I know it's evening for you. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine.
I was going to start just by talking to you about what led you to join the Army.
Yeah. So basically, people all know I love horses and I'm a very animal orientated kind of guy. And I wanted to become a farrier, sort of like put the shoes on the horses. And where I was brought up in Cheltenham and in England, there was no sort of like farriers taking on apprenticeships. And my granddad always told me before he passed, bless him, to get a trade, get a trade, get a trade, something that you can always fall back on, you know. And so I joined the military and I joined the Household Cavalry because of the horses and my love for horses. And also they had farriers. So it was my opportunity for me to become a farrier. And as a farrier in the army, you'll think called time barred. So the amount of money they put in you, you need to serve a certain amount of time so they get their money back on you, sort of thing. But it never really worked out because I was dyslexic. You know, you need to know the anatomy of the horse, the bones and everything like that. And when they set us homework to do, I was doing more illustration work than I was written work. It wasn't good enough for them. My practical skills were there, but I didn't have a plan B. That was the only problem. My only focus was during the army, become a farrier, you know.
So you ended up going in to become a farrier, and in joining the Army, that left you with very few options, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I just didn't have a plan B at all because I just so focused on what I wanted to do.
Okay, so I'm going to make an assumption just based on looking at you that you're a big, strong, able-bodied sort of fellow. So was the physical life of the Army attractive to you? Because that would be something that would attract me. I'd be like, oh, I get to be outside and I get to work hard and I get to challenge myself physically as well as mentally. Was that part of it?
Yeah, I was a very lonely child. I had a brother, but I think as a child, I was very lonely, as in I had a best mate who used to come and help me, but it was solely horses, 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 horses. Get up early in the morning, do the horses, go to school, come back, finish off what I didn't do in the morning. So I started doing triathlons, so running, swimming, riding, and shooting. And I got heavily into that as a teenager. So during the army, I was already at a certain fitness level and I just love fitness. I just love it. And like everyone says, if you're depressed, got PTSD or mental health, hit the gym, you know, but it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. And I think as I was in the forces, you become quite regimented in your routine, and fitness was a big thing. And don't get me wrong, I do see people in the armed forces and they're heavily overweight. And I didn't want that. I wanted to be at top of my game, everything that I did. So fitness is a big part of it. Yeah. And to focus on that. And to this day now, I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I go to the gym, then I go to work, and then I'm home, and then I chill out. So I'm still at that regimented routine in my mind. And I think as a veteran in any country, you're routined in the army. you've got a routine and you're disciplined. And I think you miss that when you get out. So I think it's important for yourself to have a routine to keep your mind strong and as well as your body sort of thing, you know?
Absolutely. I can relate to that 100%. And I
Mm.
also watched a video of yours recently where you talked about the benefits of going outdoors. So there's the
Yeah.
physical activity part of it, and there's also being outside in fresh air that's so incredibly helpful.
Oh, you know, just being in the woods, just being outdoors and because I work in a factory now, and but I enjoy the aspects of being outside and I long for being outside. And that's why I can't wait when I'm home and I take my dog for a walk, you know, because I just love the outdoor feeling. And I think everyone should experience that, especially in the woodblock. You know, nature gives you so much of a mental release. Trees, flowers, everything. And some people don't realize that. They think 9 to 5 job, go to the gym, come home. No, get out and about, you know. And being in the armed forces, having that opportunity to be outside all the time, yeah, it was a no-brainer me joining anyway. So,
So that feels like sort of a natural transition to your survival school, the Maverick Survival School,
oh
which looks fascinating.
yeah, just the Maverick name came because obviously it was my call sign on a couple of tours that I'd done. Because everyone knew me as Maverick 41. So I kept the name as the Maverick Survival School. And then I opened it up to veterans, people suffering with their mental health and PTSD. But then I realized it's just not veterans that suffer, it's first line responders, the police, the fire brigade, the ambulance service. And so I opened up to them as well. And then I thought to myself, well, civilians suffer as well from childhood trauma and like if they've had an accident or car crash or they've lost someone. So I open up to everybody now. And I used to do every weekend. And this year I've done weekend on, weekend off because I didn't want to lose the love for bushcraft by just hammering myself all the time. So having that downtime to spend with my wife, Tanya, our animals is fantastic. But to be in the woods and to teach gives me a sense of purpose, you know, gives me that purpose that the army gave me, that the Maverick School's given to me at the moment.
It just seems like a perfect marriage of that, or at least a perfect opportunity to introduce people who may not be familiar with it, that healing power of nature, that you can bring people together in that kind of environment and be teaching them survival skills, like very practical also, but in that kind of gorgeous natural environment.
Yeah, I'd say the Bushcraft Survival School is the Bushcraft secondary in my eyes. The first step is you're in nature and you don't get a phone signal where I am. So technology is out the window. I know where you can get a signal if anything goes wrong in an emergency, but otherwise I don't tell them that. And I say, look, you don't get a phone signal in here, so you've got no choice but to talk. You know, there's no electricity, so you've got no choice but to light a fire, and you've got no choice but to drink water and non-alcohol and stuff like that. And it brings them back to their Neolithic Neanderthal sort of way, that the way we're meant to be, you know. And they tip up on a Friday and they leave on a Sunday with a total different attitude to realize that nature is a savior. And to have that bit where you're away from social media for a while and take you away from that is second to none. The amount of emails that I get afterwards saying that you've changed my aspects of life, you've changed my aspects of day-to-day thinking. And what's special about the Maverick School, yeah, it's outside, but I have a therapist that comes down as well, and he sits and talks to everyone on a Saturday. And if you're really struggling, he will take you out for a walk, you know, and he won't abandon you. He will follow up on you each day and to make sure that you're getting the right help, and he will guide you to get that help. So, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I was going to ask, there must be things that surface during the weekend. Like, people will get into conversations and talk about things that may become more than what the group or maybe you are prepared to handle in the moment. But you have somebody there, a professional who can come and,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
support.
yeah. And if it gets too much for me, because I always believe no one understands mental health or PTSD unless you've gone through mental health and PTSD. And then you can understand their pain they're going through. It's nothing you can read from a book. You need to experience it. When people are around the fire, they relax. And when they relax, they start talking. And sometimes they do it without even know they're doing it. And then if it gets too deep, I always say to them, look, Ross is coming down. Let's have a chat with him and he will square you away. And he said, yeah, that's fine. But they carry on talking because they feel relaxed and comfortable in their surroundings. And like on the Friday when they tip up, you can hear a pin drop, because people are sussing everyone out. And then on the Saturday, because I get them to work together, work as a team, and then obviously doing the bushcraft stuff, Saturday, I can't shut them up. They're all talking. Everybody's like, and they all swap numbers at the end, emails and stuff like that. And that brings a warmth to my heart and obviously Tanya's heart as well, because we set this school up for that purpose,
One of the things that interests me is being able to create that kind of space where people feel that they're able to open up without worrying about how maybe they're going to be seen or judged, and feel comfortable sharing things. You particularly, what are some of the things that you do to create that kind of secure space for people?
I talk about my mental health and my suicide attempts, and it puts them at ease because, like you said at the beginning, yeah, I'm a big bloke, I'm 6'4", I'm 19 odd stone, I go to the gym and they always seem, fucking hell, if he can talk about it, I can talk about it. If he can cry, I can cry. Then I say to him, it's okay to be down. Some days it's okay to feel down. We all get that down feeling. And I said, if it prolongs on longer than it should, then you need to seek the help. But yeah, talking about my mental health to break that barrier between me and them, because I've never met them, it makes them feel confident enough to talk as well. And plus, it's weird. I've got a little dog called Steve, and he runs around the camp and he relaxes people as well because he's an animal and they stroking him, they're feeling more at ease. And being outdoors and having an open fire where you can just stare into it and get lost into it, it just makes you feel comfortable.
How did you become able to talk about things openly like that? Because I'm going to make an assumption that you weren't
Yeah.
originally that way.
Not at all. Not at all. Obviously, I got discharged out the armed forces in 2013 with, I got a brain injury. Both hips were being replaced and CPTSD. I realized that there wasn't enough help out there for veterans. Yes, there's charities. Yes, there's therapy. Yes, we've got the NHS in England to help people, but it's not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough for veterans, first-time responders, and as I say, and civilians. They need that to feel comfortable to open up, and they're not alone. And that's why I open up, because I want to realize to people that they're not alone in this mental health battle. They're not alone in fighting this demon. They're not alone in their PTSD challenges. You're not alone. And many a time that I open up on these other podcasts or I do talks, after dinner talks and stuff like that, it resonates in people to think, no, yeah, I'm not alone. He's suffering. And that's how he copes with his mental health. Maybe that'll work for me. And they give it a go. And then they email me back saying, thank you so much for the way you cope with it made me realize. And sometimes it resonates in their partners and they go, oh, yeah, my husband's like that. Why's my husband like that? Christ, he's never opened up to me, but I think he's got PTSD. And then the wife or the boyfriend will confront their partner and say, I think this. And then the partner gets hold of me and we talk and it all stems from there.
It's an amazing thing to be able to do for people. It's came at a huge price. I understand that, but it's such a gift that you share with people who have had experiences like yours.
Massively. And I always say that military PTSD towards civilian PTSD is PTSD, it's post-traumatic stress, or CPTSD, chronic PTSD, and mental health is mental health. It's trauma in your life. It's trauma that you need to face and you need to talk about. And talking is the way forward. Now, medication, yeah, I'm on medication. I'm on a lot of medication to make me stable. Now, I always say I'd rather be like this than that. Soon as I dip down, I'm depressed. So I'd rather take the medication to keep me level.
Hmm.
It doesn't put me on a high. It keeps me on that level period. It makes me feel numb, but that numb feeling stops me dipping. It stops the suicidal thoughts, stops the demons in my head overpowering me. And I'd rather have that and have that numb feeling than anything else. Now, medication is not the answer. I love to be off of medication, but at the moment, it's helping me. And these people that say, I don't want to take medication, I don't want to take, that's fine. That's fine. But when they look at me and they think, what could the change of him from where he was to where he is now? Maybe medication will help me a little bit, as well as talking. It's a whole package, medication's half of it, talking's the other half. And then little triggers like I use a weighted blanket and it's 10 kilos, this weighted blanket, and I sleep with it and it stops me having night terrors because it's the cocoony weight on your body. Walking, yeah, I know the gym, but it's not necessarily it's for everybody. Go for a walk, go in the woods and feel that release. There's little things that you need to help yourself. And sitting in a room on your own and saying to yourself, I think I've got mental health, that's good. You've realized it, but you're not crying out to anyone to help you. You're just sat in that room going, I think I've got mental health. You need to get out of that room and you need to tell people and talk to people to get that help. It's not necessarily you have to talk about mental health. I have people come to my camp and talk about random stuff, Bigfoot, aliens, random stuff. Do you know what though, Sarah? They're talking and they're laughing and they're smiling. And that's what it's all about.
I don't know if you know a book called Tribe
No.
by, okay, it's by someone named Sebastian Junger, but he talks a lot about, and he talks a lot about military implications of it, but the importance of community, of people coming together, of relying on each other, of sharing stories with each other. And it's the isolation. It's feeling like we all need to be independent and doing our own thing when times are good or bad. That's never good for us because we should be so connected to others to feel like we're part of something, and then we don't feel so isolated and alone, which is when those dips
Yeah.
can happen.
Yeah. We're social animals. We're social creatures. I used to watch a thing on telly called Alone, when they go to Alaska and
I
they have
watched
to,
that. That's
yeah, and they
that's
have to
crazy.
survive. And I watched last year's one, and this guy was thriving. And I call it in my school, you're not surviving, you're thriving. Because he had food, he had water, he had a good shelter because he was a carpenter. It was like a log cabin. And he was absolutely thriving. And they put him to win the whole show. And do you know what? He sat down one day and got a picture out of his girlfriend. And then he sacked it. He rang up and said, look, yeah, I'm tapping out. We're not designed to be alone. It doesn't work in our brain to be alone. These people that do live alone still have to go shopping, still have to see people, not necessarily talk to them, but to realize that they aren't alone. And I think that's mental health as well, because sometimes you're in that bubble where you do feel alone. And even though there is people around you, that'd be a good book. I might get that to read. Yeah.
I will send you the information because my son has read it and it's become one of the books that he carries with him every time he travels. He comes back to it
Brilliant.
over and over again.
Yeah. Brilliant.
We were talking about different ways that you've shared your story. So you share through the survival school with the people that come there, and you go on podcasts and you talks. But you also wrote a book. Can you
Yeah.
talk to me a bit about the experience of writing?
So I didn't write it. I spoke it.
Okay.
It's doing well, still doing well. I don't know how long it is, 7 years now. I think I wrote the book, 6 years. And it was because I held the record for the longest sniper kill. My wife pushed me into writing a book. She goes, and she's behind me every way. And there's always that saying, behind me, every man is a stronger woman, and she is, and she doesn't realize how much she does help me. And she's pushed me and to make me be successful in life, and especially with mental health. And she said, write a book, write a book, write a book. So I wrote a book, but everyone's interested in the snipering. But if I wrote about snipering, it'd be a pamphlet. So I wrote it about my life as a child, to me joining the army, to the experience of me in the army, to snipering, to the tours that I'd done, for me getting discharged and how I felt abandoned, to where I am now. And I kept it as raw as possible. And yes, I had a ghostwriter that helped me to put it into words, but he took nothing out of it. I wanted everything in it to keep it as raw as possible. And I felt it important to keep it raw because I wanted people to understand where I was coming from. And yeah, it was quite therapeutic to write. Do you know, it took me 3 months, 3 months to
Wow.
write it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. You're so
I was,
disciplined. I think that's part of
yeah,
it.
every night I was just, and I didn't do it chapter to chapter. I was doing it back to front, in the middle, to do whatever stories came to my head at the time. And I write things down now still. I've got a book, it's about that fact, and it's got a lock on it. And I write all my negative thoughts in it. And because they're negative, they're locked away. Some people say, well, it's bad to write because you look at the negative stuff all the time because you flick through it. And I said, I tend not to. That's discipline. And just write onto the empty page how you're feeling in that day, how your demons are making you feel. Yeah, so I am still writing now. And I think that's stemmed from the book as well.
That's cool. There's actually there's a book called I think it's called The Artist Within, and there's a whole program about trusting yourself and pursuing your creative voice. And one of the things they talk about is morning pages. So you wake up first thing in the morning and you just write down everything that's in your head. Because it's actually getting it out of your head. It's
Yeah,
not to go look at later. It's just like release all that
yeah.
stuff so you can clear the deck so that you can then go forward with what you do want to focus on.
And also you can see, if you do flick back, you can see your road for recovery, for where you were, and you're going back and you're negative, negative, negative to negative to negative to positive to even positive. And that helps as well.
And I have to order the book. I looked at the local library and they don't have a copy because I'm really curious. And I'm also curious because when you said you wanted to make it raw, the fact that you spoke it rather than writing it,
Yeah.
I'm sure lends a lot to that voice of it's just really real. It's you telling stories. It's real life. And if the ghostwriter moved stuff around so that it was kind of like in a order, like in a time chronological order, then that makes sense. But it's your voice that's, I'm sure, super compelling.
Yeah. And there's an audio book as well.
Oh,
And
I might get that. I might get
yeah.
that.
And the guy that actually speaks on my behalf, fantastic.
Okay.
Really fantastic. I recommend the audio version
Okay.
massively. Let me know. Let me know what you think.
I will. I will. That's cool.
Yeah.
Are there certain things you realized through writing the book that you hadn't actually thought of before, but going through the process of telling these stories, were there certain things you sort of realized and went, wow, I never knew I felt that way, or, oh, now I understand better where I am now because just through the process of getting it out, getting the stories
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. And I forget as well, like talking and it'll lead on to another story. And I think, fucking hell, I forgot all about that. Yeah, that's that. And I'll put that in as well, and it leads on to another story. And then that will lead on to another one. But because it's weird because I sort of like store everything in my head, and I refused because when I was in the forces, obviously you're moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and you haven't got time to think about certain stuff. You just got to get on with the next job, and the next job, and the next job. So you just put things at the back of your brain. And when I got blown up in Afghan, that wall got shattered. That I was trying to hide all these negative thoughts, and then I got redeployed to Afghan, and I was thinking about things that I did on previous tours, but I'm on this tour now And then I'm thinking about stuff that I did as a child. And I'm thinking, why am I thinking all this? You know, yeah, talking's the way forward for mental health, for satisfaction, for your own, and even talk to yourself, and obviously, like you said, writing stuff down. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I talk to myself a lot, actually.
Oh,
Actually,
yeah. It's when you respond to yourself, you got to worry.
yeah. Exactly. But it's kind of like you were saying before about how we're social animals, and talking is more social than writing. Like, writing is good because you can still share your ideas and stuff, but it's interacting with other people in real time out loud in
Yeah.
words, speaking.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate communication for me anyway. Like, the ultimate communication is that live spoken, not written.
And do you know what I found the other day, Sarah, is when we're Neanderthals and living in caves, they had these pictures on the wall, like antelope, mammoths and tigers, and they were slightly blurred, and they couldn't work it out why they were slightly blurred. And they figured it out. If you set a fire underneath the rock, because they were blurred, it gave the impression that the animals were moving. So then that's communication. We've lost that hunter-gatherer instinct in us, and it's a shame.
I wanted to ask you, just in general, based on your experiences and the Maverick Survival School too, what vulnerability means to you?
Vulnerability is, in my eyes, in myself, important. Everyone needs to have a vulnerability in their lives, I think, because it shows you that you're human. You can't be this tufty big bloke all the time. You need to show your vulnerability, and showing your vulnerability will make people relax around you and make them open up around you as well. I struggled at the beginning with vulnerability, crying, wondered why I was crying. And Tanya noticed my mental health before I did, because I'm not a person to sit there and cry and I just, like you say, roughy tufty to get on and do it, sort of attitude. But then I've realized now it's okay to have a vulnerability, but there's a limit of what you can show without people taking advantage of you, sort of thing.
I think that's really important. And that's one of the things I've begun to realize just through these conversations with people is first of all, it's learning how to be open about how you're feeling and what you want to do. But then it's also that you have to have controls over that in some ways. You can't just open up, and then because it also loses its value. It's not about walking around like an open book to everybody all the time.
Yeah, because there's out there, same where you are, same where I am, there's always that predator that will hunt your vulnerability down. There's a level of a vulnerability that you should show, but there's some that you need to keep into yourself. I think that's important.
And also, of everything I've heard you share, I appreciate how you speak about your wife, because you give her a lot of credit, and it seems like it's just a very generous, loving partnership, obviously. And so congratulations on that.
Oh, I love her. She's, I doubt I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for her strength. And usually when you leave the armed forces after a long period of time, your marriage will break down. And I've seen many occasions where people have left because it hasn't worked, but me and Tanya are strong. And I'll tell you why we're strong. It's because we talk to each other. We not necessarily talk about the hustle bustles of life. I talk about random stuff, and I know she's not interested, but we're talking.
You can check out the mavericksurvivalschool.co.uk and Instagram at COH Craig Harrison to learn more about what Craig is up to today, and read his military memoir, The Longest Kill, The Story of Maverick 41, for insight into what brought him to where he is now. And P.S., for those of you who caught it, you're right. I mistakenly referred to a book as The Artist Within when it really should have been The Artist's Way. Sorry for that.